You are most welcome to this Unit 2, Module 1 of BIO304. We are still on the study of ecosystem. So we want to talk about the productivity of an ecosystem. That is, how do they become productive and how best do you measure their productivity? So follow me as we just move through the course. So the first thing is the concept of productivity. What is the concept? How do autotroph produce their own food? And we know that autotroph consists of plants, algae, and some bacteria, while the heterotrophs include animal, fungi, most protists, and bacteria, and non-green plants. So those are the uh, uh, heterotrophs. So how do autotroph produce food? Autotroph or plants are able to capture light energy and manufacture their own food. However, heterotrophs must obtain organic molecules that have been synthesized by autotrophs. So that is the concept of productivity. That is, autotrophs produce their food through the sunlight, through the energy source. So that's that. So now, what is primary productivity? Primary productivity is simply defined as a term used to describe the amount of organic matter produced by green plants from solar energy in a given area during a given period of time. That is what primary productivity is. Now, the next thing is gross primary productivity, GPP. So, what is gross primary productivity? Gross primary productivity is the total organic matter produced, including that used by the photosynthetic organisms or green plants for respiration. So note the definition very well, including that used by photosynthetic organisms for respiration. Now, what is net primary productivity? Net primary productivity is the total amount of energy fixed per unit time minus the energy expended by the metabolic activities of the photosynthetic organisms in the community. So you can see that this one minus it, while the gross productivity is plus it. It added the energy used for respiration. That is gross. It's like when you are, selling in the market, they will ask you what is the gross profit and what is the net profit. Gross profit is all the money you make, while the net profit is all the money you make minus the total cost of what you produce. Like you bought something for 10 naira and then you sell it in the market for 20 naira. Your gross profit is 20 naira, but your net profit will be 20 naira minus the 10 naira you used to buy that product. That is 10 naira, so your net profit will be 10, and the same thing applies here. So gross profit primarily, you know okay, net primary productivity equals the gross profit minus energy expended by the metabolic activities of the photosynthetic organisms. So what is the significance of primary productivity? Why is primary productivity so important? So I come up with this. You can look at it. A primary productivity is significant because it is through the primary productivities that the autotroph acquire energy to provide for all the energy that heterotrophs use, without which they will not survive. So it is important. Primary productivity is significant. When we say significant, we also mean important. That is the importance of primary productivity. And you remember we told you that primary productivity is simply the ability of the autotroph, that is the plant, to produce food. Now, if this green plant, they don't produce food for the heterotrophs, they will not be able to survive. They will not be able to survive. So that is what makes it significant. Okay. Now let's move on to energy flow. Energy flow. Okay, let's talk about pyramid of energy flow. Okay, before we talk about that, maybe I should talk a little bit about energy flows, but this is simply the movement of energy in the ecosystems. The plant will take up the energy after they use the sunlight to make the energy for themselves, and then this energy will move from them to the animal that will eat them. For instance, rabbit that will eat the grass. So they have transferred that energy from the green plant to themselves. Okay, and then from there it will move from people who might decide to eat that rabbit, for instance. So they have transferred that energy from that rabbit to themselves. So as this energy is moving from the green plant to the herbivores to the primary consumer, secondary consumer, and tertiary consumer, the energy becomes smaller and smaller as it goes. Okay, it becomes smaller and smaller as it goes. That is the energy transfer. So how efficient is this energy transfer? This is just telling you that only about 40% of all what we eat from green plant actually gets into our body, and out of this 40%, just 10% is being used, for the development of our body. Others get excreted out again, or they get built up somewhere else. All right, so that is what this thing is talking about. So if it is only 10% that is being used by our body to grow our muscle and everything, and in any case something else eats it up, so that means that thing that eats that particular organism up only eats just 10%, of that energy that has been created. But that does not mean that the energy that is not being used by the animal will get lost, because there is a law, the law of thermodynamics. You remember the law of conservation of energy that says energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but can only be transferred from one point or from one form to another. So there is a way this energy gets recycled back into the environment, and then it gets reincorporated into organisms. So that is what I can explain about that. Now, pyramid of energy. What is pyramid of energy? Pyramid of energy shows the flow of energy from one tropic level of a community to the next, and the rate at which energy flows up a food web. That is what is called pyramid of energy. Pyramid of energy. You can see that. So that is that about this unit. I hope you understand it very well. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. But before we go, let's quickly attempt this question and see if we can actually uh answer it. All right. So what is primary productivity? I'm asking you. I'm not going to answer it because I already answered it before. So why is primary productivity important? Because it is what keep the life on planet Earth alive. Without the primary productivity, the heterotroph cannot survive. Okay, now describe how energy transfer occurs in the ecosystems. How efficient is the transfer? So how does it happen? How does it happen? It happens from the plant. The plant will take up the energy being created by themselves, being manufactured by themselves through the process called photosynthesis, and then the primary producers, the primary consumers, will eat it up. So the energy they so created for themselves has been transferred to the primary consumers, and then these primary consumers, will also be eaten up by another consumer, which is called secondary consumer. The secondary consumer will also be eaten up by tertiary consumer. But about the efficiencies of these movements of energy flows, you can say that only 10% of all the energies are getting into the primary producers are being used. And then of course, out of this 10% that gets into the primary consumers and is being eaten up by the secondary consumer will also be used by him. So only 10% is available for him, and then 10% now divided by 4, because it is 4 quarter of energy. So that 10% will now reduce to 4%. And then if the tertiary consumer now eats the secondary consumer, so the tertiary consumer is only eating 4% energy, and that one again will still be divided by 4, which is 1%. Okay, this is one of the reasons why you will not see a food chain extending beyond 4 different type of organisms, because the energy must have exhausted when it gets to the third one. When it gets to the fourth one, and this is what explains the pyramid of energy. That is, the abundant one is the one that hits first, that hits the energy first. That is the herbivores. Then the second lucky ones are the primary consumers. The secondary consumers. But by the time it gets to the third consumer, to the tertiary consumers, the energy must have way reduced, and this is what caused the less abundance of that categories of species. So this is the total mark assignment. There's nothing we have not discussed about this particular question. So I want you to answer it. Please make sure you answer it before you go. Thank you. God bless you.